This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
Welcome back. Humans aren't the only ones that suffer from summer heat, but it's also hard on our four-legged friends. The excessive heat and humidity can take a toll on them. To learn more about the heat stroke and the signs to look out for, we have Dr. Jenny Lindquist of Lindquist Veterinary Care Center here this morning to break it down for us. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're approaching the summer months, which means our temperatures are just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And so, of course, we like to keep ourselves cool, but we also need to keep our animals cool, right?
Absolutely. And we've actually already seen 3 pets with heat stroke this year.
Really?
Because it's not just as the temperatures rise, it's the acclimation of the pets.
Okay.
And so those few days that we had whenever the temperatures just spiked unexpectedly, the pets weren't ready for it, and those pets were the ones that suffered very quickly from that.
So really quickly, for our viewers who aren't familiar, what are some signs and symptoms that we need to look out for if we do suspect heat stroke in our animals?
There's actually 3 stages of that. There's a heat exhaustion, a heat stress, and then a heat stroke with that.
Okay.
And in those first signs, you just see a muscle shaking and a lethargy associated with that, or a tiredness, a collapse type situation, which goes on into a very hard panting, distress, drooling, disorientation, and those types of signs. And then it goes on into the seizures, coma, and the death type situation. So we want to get way ahead of that.
Right.
So the very first signs they're going to see is a muscle tremor, and those are really hard to see in your heavy coated breeds, you know, your border collies, your long haired breeds.
Right. Now, are there different types of, I would say, maybe dog breeds that are more, at risk for heat stroke, or is it pretty much the same playing field for all dogs and cats out there?
We do see it overrepresented in our Labradors, border collies, and the short-nosed breeds. You know, the Labradors and border collies, they're all heart, and they're just going to go and go and go. And we say they have more heart than they have sense in some cases, because they just live life to the fullest. You know, and the short-nosed breeds, they don't exchange oxygen quite as well as they should, and when the air gets humid and heavy, they just can't change that oxygen. They can't cool themselves like they need to. And so those 2 breeds just tend to not respond as well necessarily to the excessive temperatures and the high humidity.
So what are some tips that we should keep in mind to keep our animals cool during the hot summer months?
Right. One is acclimation. You know, again, if you're taking your dog to an area, immediately taking them to Texas or someplace where it's really hot, really be cautious during that 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. area and not run them excessively hard or leave them unsupervised during those time frames. But 2, in this time frame here, keep them, if you have a very long-haired coat, grooming them to get a lot of that coat off. Take the winter wool sweater off of them would be a really great idea, so that they can cool themselves better. Keep the freshwater access to them at all times. Keep them in the shade, and not travel them if at all possible, and keep them supervised. Do not leave them unsupervised in a vehicle. We have many of our cases of heat stress come from pets being left unsupervised in vehicles. It is a proven fact that the temperature in a vehicle can rise up to 120 degrees in 7 minutes in a vehicle. And I don't know about you, but I can't get in and run a short errand anywhere in 7 minutes and be back in my car in 7 minutes. And so that's even with the windows partially left open for the animal to breathe, so to speak. But 120 degrees is very serious.
Wow. And really quickly, I know that we keep mentioning heat stroke in dogs, but it's actually possible in cats as well, right?
Certainly. And that it's very serious in cats because they are, do have a very thick fur coat, most of these cats, and some of them have very long, luxurious coats.
Right.
Very difficult for them to cool themselves effectively. And you won't necessarily see that beginning muscle tremor. So the very first signs, by the time you see that heavy panting, which is the second sign that they're going into a distress that'll go into a kidney failure, go into seizures, then they are well on their way. And it's very difficult to cool a cat, where it might be easier to cool a dog. And in those cases, then we definitely, we see those often whenever they have been in transport. Cats, of course, should be in carriers, not loose in a car.
Right.
But if they're in transport in a car and folks, I just need to stop off and do an errand here, the cat will be fine, he's in a carrier. But again, that 120 degrees in 7 minutes really stresses that little cat out bad. in those little carriers.
All right. Well, all great information and tips to keep them cool. What we'll do is we'll post everything on our website at heartlandconnection.com. We'll also link up your information if they have any questions or if, in case of emergency, they need to go to a vet. So thank you so much. Okay?
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.